Welcome to Stir Crazy Art Classes with Gerald Savine. Lesson number 4, project number 2, part 2, painting the fruit. Here we go again. Now, if we look around here, we can see the colours we're using. We've got cadmium yellow pale, cadmium red pale, yellow ochre and sap green. And also here, to make sure I don't get the colours all mixed up, I've got 3 pots of water for me to wash my brushes out. I'm using a brush number 8 on this occasion. To start off with, just a little bit about watercolour paint. One of the wonders about watercolour paint is what happens is the light goes through the pigment and reflects off the paper. And because of that, you cannot paint light colours over dark. So you do need to remember that when you're painting. So when you're painting, you think about the lighter colours first and then the darker colours afterwards. Now, I'm just going to show you again here a little thing. I'm just picking up a little bit of the sap green. And again, just to demonstrate, look, that's quite strong there. I'm going to wash the brush out quickly here. As I pull the colour, can you see it gets thinner and thinner? We did this in the first project we did, but you can see how you've got strength of colour there, and gradually it goes thinner and thinner and thinner. So you can go the other way around. You go down thinly, and then add the same colour but with more pigment on, and that will build up and give you a feeling of structure. Now, starting off with looking at the original picture. Oh, by the way, before we go any further, better talk about the colours here. Another thing about colour is colour has, I mentioned this last time, has warmth or coolness. This is the lemon yellow we were using before. Can you see it's quite sort of bright and acidy in a way, whereas the cadmium yellow pale is warmer. So when you're working, you need to think about what is the colour looking like. Again, here the orange here is a warm colour, and again it's where the cadmium red pale comes in, but not without mixing it first. So what we're going to do first of all is, going on the basis of light to dark, we're going to work our way around the painting. We're going to start off with laying a thin coat of yellow on the banana. But can you see from the photograph that colour is quite warm? And when you look at that against the yellow here, but it's still not quite right, is it? This is a little bit warmer still. So what we're going to do is we're going to introduce a little bit of yellow ochre into that, just to give it a little bit of warmth, a little bit more warmth than before. So I'm going to start off here. We've got some cadmium yellow already waterized, as it were. I'm going to bring in a little bit of, again, as I said before, when you're mixing colours, bring the darker colour into the lighter colour, so you don't overdo it. And I'm just comparing. I'm looking against the original. That's not too bad. It's just taken the strength of the yellow out. So it's just brought it down a bit. Now, again, here I'm going to paint the whole of the banana in one coat of paint. And again, I'll pull the colour. I'm being careful along with the pencil lines. And again, here, as I've said before, you need to be a bit careful about your pencil lines. I've been a bit stronger here so you can see what I've, the shapes that are there. And again, here I'm going to quickly brush on, and hopefully by the time I get back round to this one, the colour will have dried, and we can then build up the pigment. Just put a bit of colour into there at the end. Now again, I've been messy round here. Look at that, tut, going off the pencil line. So again, I'm going to come round now, pulling it round, fill up the space like this. There we go, just watching the time. Coming round like that. So I'm going to leave that now to dry. Now I'm going to work clockwise, so I'm going to do the pear next. Now again, look at this green here compared to that. it's much too strong, isn't it? But can you see again, it has a slight warmth in this, which we can obtain from the yellow ochre. So I'm going to take some of the green, put it in a different compartment. And again, I'm going to pick up some yellow ochre from a different section. I had 2 lots of yellow ochre mixed up, ready to go. A bit more. So it's quite, whoops, perhaps that's too much now, I think. Yes, I think it's a bit too much. So I'm now going to wash my brush out in the yellow ochre pot and add a bit more green back into the mix. Okay, so I'm doing a bit more like that. So now I'm going to lay this out, again working the whole thing round. Not too bad a mix, is it? Again, I'm just going to thin it down a bit with water. We're not worrying too much about the sort of shadows and things like that at the moment. Again, I think as you pick up your skills of painting, I have to say, I have to admit that I've turned the piece of paper over, and the other side of the art paper is not quite as receptive to the colour as the other side is, the proper side. So you have to bear that in mind when you're working. I'm trying to be economic. So again here, try and get it fairly flat. But again, you see how I'm brushing the colour on here. Washing out now, then this is, look at that here compared to that. Much too strong. So what I'm going to do here, I've got some cadmium yellow again, and I'm going to add a little bit of the red into that. Look how quickly it begins to change. The red is such as, whoops, excuse me a minute, I've got some green coming in there. Tut, I hadn't washed out my brush properly. Must be careful about things like that. We're going to spoil the colours. Put a bit more in, and I'm going to just keep looking at the orange over there. So that's not much red added to the yellow. Again, look at that, how orange that's become. I know it's an orange, but there we go, that's how it should be. Again, see how I'm brushing round. The colour. So I'm using the brush, just my brush strokes. I'm not just sort of squidging it in like that. I'm following round the shape of the orange. Again, I'll just do this quite quickly. Again, I hope you'll take a bit more time than I'm taking. Yes, unfortunately the reverse side is slightly greasy. Now fortunately this is dried here because the orange colour hasn't bled into the yellow. This is one danger. If this was still wet, it would bleed in and we'd be in a mess. There we go. Okay, I'll wash the brush out in the red pot. We want to go back to the banana now, so I'm just making sure that the red's out of the colour. Now what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to pick up the yellow with a bit of the yellow ochre in, and I'm going to put in a second layer of basically the same colour. But can you see how it's... So what you've got here is you've got the more pigment you put on, even if it's exactly the same colour, the light isn't able to come through so easily from reflecting from the paper. So consequently, the colour looks darker. So as a cry goes up in the art classes, there's more pigment, and I'm afraid it's rather a common cry, and they take the mickey out of me when I say it, but that's the fun we have at the art classes. But can you see the difference? So it's given it highlighted that, giving it beginning to give it some dimension. Go and wash it out again. Now the pear is beginning to dry off nicely, so I'm now going to put in, again, I'm not being too fussy. This is a simple exercise. Again, you can spend more time if you like and perfect things a bit more than I am here. But can you see again exactly the same colour, but there's more pigment, beginning to give some effect of shadow and highlighting on the pear. I nearly said banana, but it got me into trouble. And again here, I'm just going to pull the colour a little bit, so you get a bit more shaping as well. But again, you can spend more time than I am doing this. Again, there's a bit of highlighting going on there, so we'll be careful not to overdo this. And wash the brush out again. And now I'm going to go back to the orange. Wash the brush out in the red pot. So you've got more, so just take some of the colour off. Now again here, I'm going to put in more colour, more pigment to help give shaping of the orange. A bit up there, just a bit round there. And again, I think just there's a bit of shaping up there, so we do that. But again, you see we can then just add that bit of more colour in. Now again, while that's drying, wash your brush out and go once more back to the banana. Now then, it's the colour I think I've been using, this a little bit more. Now the last bit here, now unfortunately it's still a bit wet, so you're going to have to forgive me for this. It might be not work out quite the way I want, but again, you'll have time to do things properly. Again, so I'm just trying to demonstrate to you how to work. But can you see there how the stronger, the more pigment there is, it's given a feeling of shaping to the banana. I'm not going to do any more colouring onto the pear now for the moment. Now, one thing that I will tell you, I mentioned this vaguely last time. In what they call a colour circle, opposite colours, for instance, green is opposite red. If they're mixed together, they make a slightly darker colour. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to introduce a little bit of green into the orange that we've been mixing. See, that's enough. Can you see how that's changed? And I'm going to paint that on here, just to give a bit more shadow colouring underneath there. Now, in reality, the fruit we have here is actually not real fruit. It's artificial models, and they do have a bit of reflection. So you've got reflecting light on here, but we have got the shadow growing underneath there. Now, again, in reality, there's a bit of red actually showing up in the green here as well. And again, that just sort of changes the colour a little. I'm not going to overdo that by any means. But again, because of time, the colours are a bit wet still. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pick up some of the green, and a bit of the original green there, actually, the sap green. I'm going to pop it into the top there. I'm also going to put a little bit of that here. Now, and again, I'm going to put it on there like that at the end of the stalk. Wash the brush out, and again, if I just use the tip of the brush and pull the colour there like that. Again, I'm just a little bit more of the pigment there. A bit under there, and again, there's just a tiddly little bit up the other end as well. So we've got a little bit of green here at the front of the banana. And again, I'm just thinning it down and blending it into the yellow. So, whoops, typical me, I'm afraid, messy old man. And splodge some of the colour. Let's just bung that back in there for a minute. Now then, this isn't what I'd suggest you do here is you actually get a third colour, say a brown. But what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to mix a bit of the red and the green together on the tip of the brush. This isn't quite right, it's not going to be dark enough on this occasion, but I'm just going to paint the stalk, just take it down a little bit, Okay, again, I haven't gone and put any shadowing underneath at this stage. They say really the main business here is just learning again how colour builds up. So again, that is the finish of this exercise. I hope you look forward now to the next one, which we're doing later on. Okay.